Hey there guys, DMO73 here, bringing you some feature match coverage for the week. This is myself playing Reflect Refrain Necrolance versus Josh Boersma playing a Shion Celestial Angel flip deck. So this was at an event this past week at Odyssey Games in Kalamazoo. This was an Alice Cluster only event, so I'm excited to show you guys what we came up with. So I'll be on the play. Necrolance is kind of similar to what it has been in the past, just without Cthulhu's and burn stuff. It has to be a little bit more patient. It can't really just get super aggressive. So right off the top, you see I play that Apollo to be able to flip into a Ruler's Memoria, and then play Guinevere. Start with a Reflect filter. You see I got that Necromancy in the filter, which makes me feel really comfortable. And pass the turn to Josh. Josh plays a Hydromonica, taps for his first stone. He also hits a Ruler's Memoria, and simply passes the turn to me. Now I could decide here to ship off the Guinevere. But I do have a Necromancy in hand, so I'm kind of trying to filter a little bit first. Or sorry, I don't think I have a Lancelot in hand, so I'm trying to filter through to kind of possibly get some better draws there. I play Change the World, and I play a Hera to pop his Hydromonica. You know, if I can mess up those Hydromonica plays for a Shion player, it's definitely worth it. And he's not being very aggressive right now, so... And I don't get the drop because of the fact that he destroyed it. I heard he used Hydromonica's effect to ship a card to the top of his deck. So he's trying to think about what card he wants to put to the top of his deck. Seems like he's gonna grab another Hydromonica there. He wants to be able to set up the plays later, and I don't know if he has another one in his hand. It doesn't seem like he does. So I think he was just trying to pick which Regalia he wanted to grab. So Hydromonica makes the most sense, especially since we're so early in the game. He wants to be able to set up his play later, and if he doesn't grab that Hydromonica, then he's just gonna have to sit and wait for it. So plays the Hydromonica out. He's another Ruler's Memoria, so he's probably glad he grabbed the Regalia off of Hydromonica. Plays his own Hera to pop my orb, which I'll go ahead and put a counter in my Reflect in response before he kills it. So he's just going to pass the turn there. So I have that Necromancy now in my grave. And start kind of making some plays here. Gonna filter with Reflect. Still trying to draw into that Lancelot. Haven't had much luck yet. Play one for a Rukeg. So I have some kind of defensive work here. Tapping for a stone. Fire Magic Stone. Swing for 5. Goes to block. In all honesty, I could have, instead of doing a filter with Reflect, I could have simply pumped up my Hera and saved it, but I think the filter's fine, because what I did there was I used Apollo to bounce it back in response to block, and then replay it and pop his Hydromonica. I don't want him having those Hydromonicas. It's just not helpful for me. The more that he can set up those combos, the worse my situation gets, so I want to keep those off board as much as possible. Unfortunately, he drew into the third one, so it's not really helping me very much here. But I've got a Hera, active Hera and a Rukeg on board, so I'm feeling comfortable that he's not going to be able to swing in. Decides to play a Wind Sprite, which helps him ramp up a little bit. Shadow Doppelganger in his board. Attempt to swing 5. Just gonna go ahead and block. And I'll pump my hero in response so that my hero doesn't die. I'm gonna go ahead and do Judgment for 6, or Judgment with 6 counters on. And then play. So I use white, red, and moon for my Apollo to play my Cherubim, Angel of Wisdom to pop my own Rook Egg. This will allow me to then get a search off my Rook Egg and make Cherubim a 7/7. So now I can finally grab that Lancelot and start making plays with it. And then I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 to get Rook Egg back out onto the board. Now one thing I messed up here is, you see in my hand, you saw real quick, I have a Horn of the Phantom Beast. I could have put that on board and used it to mess with his play. So like in response to a Judgment, like right here. So he's like doing it during upkeep to stack a card on top of his deck. If I had used my Horn of the Phantom Beast and put that into play that I have in my hand, in response to Judgment, I could shuffle his graveyard back in and possibly mess up his combo play. But instead, I'm going to have to just accept what he throws at me this time. He's going to pay 3, and here comes the Judgment for Shion. Shion reveals the top card of his deck. It is a Celestial Wing Seraph, and then he's going to get to grab a Lucifer from his deck, which makes me sacrifice a creature. I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice Hera. I could sacrifice the Rook Egg, but if he happens to get a Levitine or something like that, I want to be able to block his Shion pretty effectively. And I kind of have an answer right now, so to what he puts on board, so I'm not terribly concerned. So I'm going to go ahead and search, put out a 1 counter. And then I'll flip back. So this instance, I mean, this is a very powerful turn for Josh. He put out a lot of pressure on the board. Without the Levitine, it's not quite as effective, but again, that's why, you know, I would have, even if he had it, I would have saved it. I wouldn't have taken any damage because of the Rook Egg. But putting all that stuff out on board is very strong. The problem here becomes this is kind of the moment where one of the big combos of Alice Cluster kind of comes into play. So I'm going to cast Flame King Shout, which he's going to float some White Will in response, so that's going to resolve. And I get to play an Uther and target his Shion with Uther. So I'm going to get to burn Uther or Shion for 1,000 damage, which will kill her. So now right off the bat, his Shion is now dead. So I'm just out of the picture now. So I'll swing in for 8. He will take the 800 damage. So first damage is done, down to 3,200. I'm gonna go ahead and stack an untap trigger on Uther, so that at the end of the turn she will flip back to being recovered. Yeah, I forgot to recover the Apollo there at the beginning of the turn. So that's one of the big things that Necrolance can do now, is just make sure that you know, stuff stays safe. And at this point for Josh, those Regalia are pretty much just to make sure that he can get his Ruler's Memoria out. Seems like he's got a Shadow Doppelganger, Celestial Wing Seraph. I'm going to respond to the trigger of Celestial to bounce the Lucifer back, and then I'll block with my Cherubim. So he's going to gain 300 life. I'm not going to take any damage, and that Lucifer's back in his hand. So this is a good position for me to be in, because if he plays that Lucifer, I just get to sacrifice Rook Egg, and I can search for whatever I want. That's not a very good position for Josh to be in. Especially since I haven't used a single Lancelot yet. But he is going to play Lucifer after all. So I'm going to sacrifice my Rook Egg, get to go in and search my deck. Trying to pick what I want to pick. I start to think about grabbing Priscia, but then I remember what I have in my hand, and I decided it would be smarter to actually grab. I can get more done if I grab the Uther. The reason why this is the most, is more important is because Uther is going to be able to. I'm trying to keep his board clear at this point, essentially. And Uther can do a very good job of doing just that. So I'm going to flip back to being Reflect. Draw into my turn. Recover. Tap for a stone because there's really no point in flipping with only one counter. And I don't even necessarily know what I want to put the counter on for yet. I'm going to do 3. Cast another Flame King Shout into Uther. Kill Lucifer by exiling the Flame King Shout. Josh is just kind of trying to read the timing of things to make sure that works. It does, because what happens is Flame King Shout resolves and goes to grave. Then Uther comes into play and triggers. So Flame King Shout is technically already in the grave for her to make use of. So I'm gonna also put the Necromancy on her too. So Flame King Shout's gonna resolve. Uther's gonna resolve. Gonna kill Lucifer with Uther, and put the Necromancy on top of my Uther, and then give it a stat pump to be able to kill the Celestial Wing Seraph, and then 800 more damage from the Uther that's on board. So down to 27, and I go ahead and put the Horn of the Phantom Beast on board now. Could have done it a while ago and not have to do as much work, but I do know that Josh runs a just from experience playing against him, I want to be able to again mess up any contingency plans or anything else like that. At a previous iteration of the deck, Josh ran some recursion from the graveyard, some bringing stuff back from the grave and stuff like that. So I want to make sure that nothing like that happens again. So I want to play the Horn of the Phantom Beast. But he just goes ahead and discards a deep blue with deep blue on board to get us another Celestial, which is fine because I have the Rook Egg, so I have a free target for the Lucifer to kill. So going into my turn, I'm gonna go ahead and tap for a stone. Hit that fifth stone there. That's one of the things I like about Alice Cluster is you see a lot more stones. And I'd happen to top deck into the third Flame King Shout. So I just get to essentially just clear the board again I'm going to target the Celestial Wing Seraph. To kill it. It's already taken 400 damage from Flame King, so swinging for a grand. So he goes down to 17. Swinging for 8. Goes to block. So I'm trying to calculate some math here because I'm pretty sure I have lethal in my hand and on board. I'm just trying to wonder if I should use the pump and try to save the Uther, or if I need to use the pump later. So I'm going to go ahead and let him do the block and take my Uther. I'll swing in for 8 with the third Uther, taking him down to 900. That I'm going to use Apollo to bounce my Uther back to the hand and get the Necromancy to fall off, and then just play the Lance so that it'll get the Necromancy and win the game. So we'll go to game 2. So game 2 here, we'll see how this goes. Just as a heads up, we were at a tournament, so there was some sideboarding going on, but our sideboards were meta dependent, so just wanted to give you guys a heads up if you see some cards that you didn't think you would see. So Shion versus Reflect, game 2. Trashes on the play, plays that Hydramonic off the top, gets the Ruler's Memoria, and just passes the turn. So he's got a Valentina Monarch in his hand. I'm gonna play an Apollo, play a Death Scythe. I'm gonna go ahead and filter. Trying to see if I can get a Gwen in addition to that Root that's in my hand, because I have a feeling that there's a Wall of Wind coming my way. I'm trying to decide whether or not to save the Cherubim or the Hera. I decided to save the Hera, not the Cherubim, just because there's more things that are going to happen. Grab an Orb, attempt to play Rook and see if he's got the Wall of Wind, which he does. I'm okay with that. Rook is helpful, but it's not necessarily the core of the deck, so losing a Rook Egg off turn 1 is kind of fine. Especially when I get lucky enough and there's no follow-up. Gonna add a counter during the upkeep after drawing. Second red source, which is not what I wanted to see, so I'm hoping to see if I maybe can filter into something. Play the Lave. I'm just getting all of my Regalia, which isn't terrible, because it means that, you know, next turn I could just flip really quick. But because I'm kind of taking so long, Josh can kind of afford to take a little bit longer time. You see he's got a Shadow Doppelganger, Celestial Wing Seraph, Valentina Puppet Monarch, Flame King Shout Uther in his hand. Oh, and a Lucifer. Not Shadow Doppelganger, he's got Celestial and Lucifer in his hand. So I'm going to go ahead and trying to decide what I want to play here. Play Hera to pop his card. Hydramonica is going to set up his next draw. I mean, for me, having him get the draw now is infinitely better than having him being able to stack what his play is off of Shion. So I'm totally fine with him having to take the time. See that? See the Winded Light. maybe that's the card he needs right now because he's kind of playing a slower game. Or another Hydromonica. The thing is here, he won't be able to, because I'm tapping it now, he won't be able to use it. He'll need one more stone in order to be able to make it work. He won't be able to play it next turn and immediately set it up. So I've essentially timed it really well and I've stalled out his play, which is helpful. I wish I had a Horn of the Phantom Beast right now, because I think at this point I realized that Horn of the Phantom Beast was good in this situation. I'm going to filter with Reflect, see if I can maybe draw something off the top here to kind of solidify what I'm doing with all my regalia. There's the Hydromonica that comes out. It's going to call for a stone. That's exactly what I wanted to see. I wanted to see him have to take a little bit more time. Out comes the Lucifer. You know, it's the situation where I wish I had a Rook Egg to be able to do the same kind of stuff I did before. Drawing for turn, adding a counter, going up to 6 counters. Lancelot and put a Necromancy on him, and I'm gonna pump. Swing in for 1,000 damage and burn Lucifer for 7. I mean, he's just gonna accept that damage. It's fine in his mind. We're gonna do some Judgment, because I know it's coming. Honestly, if I really wanted to be smart here, I could have just immediately searched for one of the Phantom Beast and played it. That would have been a way to really lock in this game, because I'd go to, and I would still be able to bounce his Lucifer, which would be really strong, because I could essentially tap out all my counters, go down to 3, tap to recover, and be sitting at 2 counters to be able to bounce that Lucifer and just really pull ahead right now. But wasn't really thinking at the point. So we're seeing the Shion flip. There's really no point for me to shuffle because he's just going right back in for Celestial. I'm going to use my Apollo in response to Lucifer to bounce my Necromancy back to my, or to bounce Lancelot back to my hand. Gonna swing in with Lucifer, and I'm gonna accept that damage. And then I'm gonna search. So I'm staring down quite a large board presence right now. I've got to be able to make a response pretty quick. And I have to be careful what I choose to bounce back here. Put a counter on, go up to 4 counters, consolidate my dice here, and then recover. Filter with Reflect to go up to 5 counters. Do Judgment, and then I'm pretty sure I immediately search here. Yep. So my goal here is to try and kill as much of the board right now as I can, knowing that next turn is going to be pretty painful for me. Putting King Shout into Uther. Targeting Shion. He's tapped out, so he can't do anything. Exile 5's worth of cards, and Necromancy's on the stack there. Kill the Shion, and then I'm going to swing into the Lucifer to try and kill that. So, you know, at best case scenario, I trade with Celestial Wing Seraph. At worst case scenario, I trade with a Celestial Wing Seraph. At best case scenario, I get to get the Lucifer off the board, which is pretty helpful for me. He's going to call for a stone, gets the Hymnal's Memoria. He doesn't get to look at the top card of his deck anymore, so he has to just kind of call it outright and hope he gets it right. It is not. That Valentina Puppet Monarch in his hand is kind of dead right now. Can't play another Celestial right now. So he pays 2. This is actually a really strong card right now. He uses Grand Cross to kill my Uther because I'm tied for the highest attack. I have a little bit of hard time here, and in a second reading this, so I get a little confused. But the Grand Cross is going to whatever I do, I don't sacrifice my Levitine. I don't know what I'm doing there. That's a mess up on my part. I catch it. So Grand Cross gets to kill my my Uther. I sacrifice it to Levitine though, so it doesn't get RFG'd. So it's still in the grave for a future Uther play. So he's going to go ahead and do Lifelink and swing with the Celestial Wing Seraph, putting me down to 12 and putting him back up to 45. Here's my first misplay of this game. I did not flip my Reflect back, and I did draw a card. So that was my mistake. I got a little bit too hasty there. If I had flipped Reflect back, I could have tapped for a stone, tried to get some more counters on there, made some better plays. Unfortunately, because of my mistake, I don't get to use this Lancelot to full potential, but I have to go ahead and spend the 1 extra will to put a second Necromancy on it. I could have just pumped it up and then, you know, done some other stuff and had some more counters. I can bounce the Celestial Wing Seraph, so it's not necessarily awful, but I also know that I don't want him to immediately hardcast it, and I don't have a way to recover the Lancelot, which is, again, puts me in a tighter position. So he's gonna swing in. I'm gonna take the 1,000 damage. I don't gain the pump, so he's up to 48. I'm down to 200. What I don't know is that he has a second one in his hand. My point here was I'm gonna accept the 10 because I can feel like I can stay pretty stable there at 10. But then again, I don't know what he has in his hand, so what ends up happening is he just has the next one, so he's just gonna hardcast it. Without knowing that he had the other one in his hand, if I had bounced it, I would have given him a Celestial to play, which would have cost me the Lancelot and be in bad shape. This way, yeah, the 200 life, but it's not awful. But then he just has the second one in hand, and so now I gotta deal with 3 angels on board instead of 2. So at this point, I'm trying to decide what I want to do with the in response to Celestial or in response to the Lucifer. Trying to think if there's anything I even can do here, but it's looking like this probably is going to go Josh's favor. You know, so part of me is like I could bounce my Reflect back to my hand. I could bounce Lancelot back to my hand, but how effective is that really? So I just go ahead and accept that my Lancelot is going to die, and now I flip Reflect back. Draw to turn, get a counter. Now would be the great time for a Flame King Shout with Uther. So if I had Flame King Shout with Uther, I actually probably could have reestablished here, even at such low life, because I burn the board, kill the Celestial Wing Seraph, and then and then can have the will to be able to, this counters to be able to bounce stuff back. But I make my little play knowing that I'm going to lose, and so I just scoop the game and go to game 3. So game 3, I'm going to be on the play. You're going to see a couple little edits here real quick as this game goes on, just as a heads up. Because of a judge issue that happens, and some other stuff, just as a heads up when you see those little edits there. So I'm filtering with Reflect off the top, hits my Rook Egg, I have 1 counter, and I do have an orb, so pretty strong. It's pretty standard start. I wish I had gotten a Necromancy or a Guinevere instead, but Rook Egg is still good. When I draw, get a counter with orb, get a second orb out, tap for a stone. This is where I decide to try a little risk, high risk, high reward kind of situation, because I know that I can still establish even if I get Wall of Winded. So I go ahead and try and play the Lance. I have a second Lance in my hand, I believe, and that's the only reason why I'm risking it. It does manage to go through. There was the first little edit, like I said, so I'm going to swing in for 6. And pump it up to do 800 damage. So before recovery, Josh is going to use Hydromonica. Now he's staring at a hand of, he's got Celestial and Lucifer in his hand, along with a Flame King Shout, 2 deep Hydromonica, a Deep Blue, and a Levitine. So unfortunately there's really nothing he can play this turn, and he doesn't want to get greedy with his Regalia plays, because if he does, then he can get punished really hard. Like with Hera's and stuff like that, he doesn't want to lose them too soon. Which is not a good position for Josh to be in, considering the fact that there is an active Lance on board, and I'm going to 3 stones with 2 or right now he's in a position where the pressure is going to start mounting against him, and that's going to be tricky for him. So passes the turn, I draw, add 2 more counters, go to 5, tap for a stone, hit a 3rd red stone, play out the Guinevere, which is helpful for me. Swing for 6, pump it up to 8. Now normally if he had some smaller creatures and I expected some kind of crackback, I would give it an untap trigger instead of the pump to let it be, recovered so it couldn't be attacked. But I'm not terribly concerned at this point. And I still have 2 stones in hand, or 2 cards in hand, 2 stones opened. Josh is deciding whether he wants to use the Hydromonica to set up his next turn draw, or have it wait to be able to set up the Shion flip. He does decide to use it for the Shion flip here, so he's going to put a card on top. know exactly what it is. I'm not even gonna bother shuffling his deck, I don't think, because I know exactly what's about. Or no, I'm not quite sure what's gonna happen, so I think I still shuffle here. Nope, I don't. I allow him to keep it where it is. So he plays Leviathan, a Hydromonica, and a Deep Blue, and then he pitches a Leviathan to be able to flip Shion. So Shion's gonna flip into a Celestial, into a Lucifer, which I'm okay with all of these cards. I'm gonna sacrifice the Rook Egg. Gonna grab that combo piece. So here's the issue with the Shion flip deck kind of against Necrolances. Naturally, it's trying to kill things with Lucifer, but by doing that, it kind of naturally feeds Necrolance its answer, which is Uther. Especially, you know, if I have a Flame Pink Shout or something like that, it's very dangerous in that way. Now he's got to go into combat. He's going to swing at the Lancelot. I'm going to take advantage and sacrifice it to Guinevere. And I get kind of silly here. I should, you know, I catch myself, but like I deliberate about what the discard is when clearly Necromancy is what I need to be getting rid of. So I'm going to draw to turn. Cover some stones, get some extra counters, sacrifice Guinevere. All of this during, so now I'm in main phase. Discard the Hera. Go ahead and play Lancelot. Get the Necromancy trigger. Pump him up, swing 10 at Josh, and burn the Celestial Wing Seraph, which was pointless. I should have burnt the, I mean, he can trade with it anyway. I don't have first strike, so like I should just burn something else. The reason why I'm not going at Shion is it has Imperishable, and I don't want him to be able to get that was my other misplay there, so I don't want him to be able to get another Celestial Wing Seraph out. So if I play, especially since he's at such low will, so I could have played the Apollo Sphere before I swung, and then in response to the block, bounced it back to my hand. But the thing is, trading with the Celestial is actually pretty beneficial to me, because then now all he has on board is a Lucifer, and he can't even pay for it. So if I bounce it back, I'm in good shape here. So worst comes to worst, I take a swing from Shion to the face, you know, because he can God's Art and kill the Root Egg in response to the block. But he ends up just tapping for stone, which works out pretty well for me. Swings with this the Lucifer. I go ahead and bounce it back to his hand. Take me down to 6 counters. Gonna remove it and then tap to do a search. So go down to 1 counter. I think my strategy here is, you know, as long as I can deal with Shion on board, I need to try to bait out his God's Art a little bit. Take advantage of the fact that he needs to kind of start recovering stones. And then I'm going to flip back. I correct my counters here in a second. Or I guess I had 7 counters, so I miscounted there. So adding a counter with the recovered orb, let's go up to 3. It's hard to see the die, my apologies. Play the Death Scythe. That's what I searched for here. I want to be able to put him in a position where I can kill that Shion, because it can't get imperishable or anything. Chapter Stone. Play Lancelot. Get the 2 triggers on it, or get the trigger on it. Setting up for the flanking shout next turn. So I'm going to try to swing in at Shion. And I'm going to pump to try to kill it. So we'll trade. I'll sacrifice a Lancelot to kill this Jade Ruler pretty much any day. In response, he's going to Godsart it. In response, I'm going to bounce it back to my hand. I don't know why I was thinking I was using counters there. I guess because I'm used to bouncing stuff with Reflect. So then I pay 2, I play the Lancelot, get the Necromancy back up, and then actually just swing in for 800 damage in his face. So 16. So now he's got a spent Godsart, didn't actually kill anything. I've got the Death Scythe on board. He still has to tap for a stone if he wants to play Lucifer. He's going to use during, before the draw, he's going to put a card on top of his deck. Starts to think about playing Uther. Then he decides against it, which makes sense. Uther really wouldn't do much here. Sure, he could kill the Lance, but he'd have to tap out to do it, and he's staring down a lot of pressure. So now we've got that drawn card, which you see is a Leviathan. Plays the Shion, gets to call it right. Gets to look at it, so it's Wall of Wind. Then he pitches Leviathan to play Celestial Wing Seraph. Now here comes the other edit, because we actually started to resolve things, but then we actually found out that he didn't have the 4th Lucifer in deck. Something had happened and he had forgotten to sleeve it. So his build was legal, but he only had 3, so he actually just had to stick with just the Celestial Wing Seraph. But at this point, because he's tapped for a stone, simply by playing Flame King Uther, it's over, because I can kill the Celestial and just swing in for lethal. So that's what it is. Huge thanks to Josh Boersma of Team Memoria for getting me this feature match. Deck profiles will be up on Saturday, guys. Let us know what you thought about the match, how you thought it went, what misplays you may or may not have seen, so we can all learn from them. Like, comment, and subscribe as always. And until next time, this is TGamo73 signing off.